if you'd like. Obviously, we're experiencing a lot of growth, and that's something that's not just in Kuna, that's in the entire Treasure Valley. I think one of the biggest issues that we have is when it comes to development, Idaho is really big on personal property owner rights, and it makes it, it's really difficult for people that don't want to see a town to grow to not allow that growth to happen. I mean, it's going to come, it's going to happen, and we all do the best we can to manage it. So as things progress and money is invested and developers gain entitlements, those developments occur, and the more entitlements that we give out, then the more the growth happens. So I think one of the things that was most concerning to council over the past couple of years was we all know that it has a heavy impact on the school district. And the school district is one of the, I see we got on the agenda, so I won't go too deep into it, but one of the biggest things that we know is school districts are probably the most affected by growth, and yet they're the only entity that is not allowed to collect impact fees. That's very concerning, you know, as we have discussions in council. There were just obviously big concerns on what that's going to do to the school district, and we want the kids to have a good education. We care about the kids, and we have probably the finest school district in the nation, and we want to keep it that way. And that's large part because of the administrative staff, and so that brought up a lot of questions in council about wanting to hear from the school district on, you know, when we do these developments, the first thing that happens is there's agency notifications, and the school district is one that's notified. And the school district was doing what they were supposed to do: come in, look at the plan, and say, well, we need a school bus stop here, or you know, whatever it is you need for the school district to be able to serve that community. But then, as growth was happening and happening quickly, I think council started seeing that there was a real concern for not only where's the bus stop's going to be, but who's going to be picking up the kids at the bus stop, and what's the school district going to do with those kids. So that prompted a lot of discussions, and I think it may have gotten to a point to where it felt like the city was picking on the school district, and I don't think that was ever the intention of anyone with the city. I think we just wanted to hear what the real impact was. So I don't know if any of the other council members want to expand on that a little bit as to why those questions came up. I've heard it said recently that the school district is being blamed for growth, and we're certainly not blaming the school district for growth. It's just that was our question, was what was it happening with the school district, and what effect was it having, and where would you go from there? And certainly never intended to make it sound like we were blaming the school district for growth at any measure, because the school district is not a land use agency, and it never has been intended to be that way. I've always appreciated our relationship with the school district, and I thought it's always been good. So it's kind of been uncomfortable here the last couple months hearing the things that have been said in public. If council wants to expand any more on that, you certainly may go ahead and do so.
Mayor, if I could, I want to directly piggyback off what you said, and rehash the fact that things have been said and things that may have been misconstrued, and about how maybe, I can only speak for myself as a council member and not the rest of the council, has really pushed and asked for things from the school district. And it very well could have come across as me trying to say, it's up to you to help us stop. And as the mayor said, even I know that's not the case, that the school district can't stop the growth or tell us to stop the growth, more or less. But my biggest concern being on council and having kids in the district was watching what was happening in the district. I really wanted to get that really close collaboration going for quite some time. And it was really hard for me to try and mitigate what we could from our level without fully understanding, not assuming, but hearing directly from the district and exactly how it was impacting the district. And so that may be where things were misinterpreted, and I want to publicly apologize for that. I didn't want that to come across that way, but it really is an important topic. And I imagine just as important for the other council members, but especially me. And so having that collaboration is really important, and having that close discussion is important. And being able to really get the presence at the council meetings to ask those questions has been real key and real important over the last couple of meetings, and that's been huge. But it's something that I felt I struggled trying to get for quite some time. Because those questions can be asked instead of just read, and it really helps the understanding from our point of view and from the public's point of view how this is directly impacted, instead of just trying to read about it or see the numbers on paper. So moving, this meeting tonight is extremely important, and I can't thank you guys enough for putting this together, because I feel like there's so much that can be worked out and communicated in a positive manner. And that's where we're at today, and that's what I hope to see from this.
I'll add 6 years. I've been on council 6 years. Growth happened before that, but it's happening at a higher rate now, without a doubt. And it's unfortunate that we have to meet like this, because this is the first joint meeting we've had about growth in this kind of fashion. We should have been having meetings like this way more than 6 years ago, really. I mean, before I was even there, back when the mayor was on council, and probably prior to that. Growth is inevitable by the way the state statutes are written, and that's kind of the unfortunate part. We don't have more of a say in stopping it. If all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, it's going to happen, and we haven't been able to educate the public on why that is. They think, put a moratorium out, just stop it. Well, we can't legally. We just can't do that. We have to embrace it, change our the way we impact them by imposing impact fees, which again, unfortunately, the school district can't capitalize on, but we have to find ways to have them help the school district as well. And we haven't been good at that either. We've kind of failed at that too. Like the mayor said, it used to just be that the school district chimed in on where a bus stop needed to be or whatever. Most recently, we've had representation there saying, hey, we've got a problem with this, and here's why, and we're overcrowded. And I mean, the mayor's correct, the school district is fantastic. 1996, when I was in Mrs. Johnson's English class, we were overcrowded then, or clear back in 4th grade, when Mrs. Nixon was a school teacher at Indian Creek. We were overcrowded then, but we've adapted, we've overcome. We've produced quality students and great people, but we have to figure out a way to educate the public on growth and why it is happening, and hopefully get them to allow us to pass bonds and levies and the things we need to help each other. And I think it can come from both sides. If we help educate people why we are passing stuff we are in the long run, then hopefully it will help you guys.
My turn?
You're up.
I'm not going to echo everything you said, but my stance on this has been, I'm just learning. I've been on city council for a year plus, and I have a blind assumption. Fire department's taking care of their business, police department's taking care of their business. I assume the school's taking care of their business. I didn't stick my toe in it. I'm not saying I should have, but I should have been more aware of where the school's
to talk about a couple things. A lot of you probably already know how bonds and levies work, and just how the development and the growth has been affecting us, and how the school district we pick up the pieces to try to educate the kids in our community. And so I think I've been on the board 8 years, I think, and every 2 years we've had to run a supplemental levy every 2 years for the last 8 years. So levies, we try to keep it simple. Levies are for learning. So levies hire teachers, levies pay for curriculum, bonds are for building. Keep it simple like that, understand how it works. To pass a levy, we need a majority vote. To pass a bond, we need a supermajority vote. So bonds are extremely difficult to pass. We're sitting in a school right now that's halfway finished, needs to be fully finished. I think we can all understand and see the need to finish this school so that we can split the high school and provide more opportunities for the youth in our community, and especially the high school. I think it'll be a huge plus for the kids in our community. The one thing that I see, and I'm on the school board, I'm not a city councilman, but the one thing that I see in our community right now is we have a lot of starter homes, or a lot of R6s, and it seems like we have a lot of good folks out here that are here and they're helping, they're doing what they can, and as their family grows and as they can afford a little bit bigger house, we lose those families because they can't find a bigger house here in Kuna. So, I mean, I would just encourage you to do everything that you can to, if a developer comes and they get approved for an R6 or an R4, hopefully next time we can encourage them to do an R2 so that we can keep these, because the families that are leaving are leaders, they're volunteers in our schools, and those are the people that we're losing because the homes aren't there for them to be able to stay here. They move back to Boise and Meridian, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So it's just recurrent of, it would just, I know that it sounds simple, but hopefully that could be a push, and I think that would help a ton if we were able to do that. And then I think one more thing that we would ask from the city is to just help educate the public when we are running the bonds and levies, and help be one with us to help get those passed so that we can finish this school and split the high schools, and a few other things that we have a need for as well. Trustees, do you guys have anything else to add?
I kind of want to go back to the legislative, because that's my wheelhouse, but we all know that the legislative session has only got about a couple more weeks left, and so there's really not anything we're going to get done this year. But I would hope that maybe in the fall, or towards the end of the year, we could come back together and either come up with a joint resolution that we could give to our legislators, or write a letter to our legislators, and then, because we're about to get new legislators. Cuna's going to be the new District 23. We were 22 before, and now we're going to be in 23. And so it's a prime opportunity to get in front of these new legislators. They're not going to be any incumbents in our district except for maybe our senator. And so we'll have new representatives to the legislature, and it'll be a prime opportunity for us to start pushing impact fees. And even I wrote down when JD was talking, the 66.7% that we need to pass bonds. There's always been a push to, or in the last few years, there's been a push to lower that amount, so that, prime example, Valley View ran a bond and a levy on Tuesday. Their levy passed, but their bond failed by 2.5%. They were so close, but if it could be reduced to 60%, they would have been able to build the new school that they need. So I think it would be great if we could come together as a team and really work on legislators next year.
If I could ask us a question of the school board, you have a powerful lobby. The Idaho School
2017, our board started talking impact fees, and we took it to the Idaho School Board Association, and they've been working on it for the last couple of years. We have one person who's willing to carry it, but no chairman that's willing to hear it. And so, so they've been working on it very hard the last couple of years, and we've won over a couple of people. We're gonna work on some more people this summer, but they've been working on it really hard.
And you might explain also, when we talk impact fees, what we're talking is a change in the language.
Yeah.
And so that language change right now is what the fire department and the transportation library can charge some type of impact fees.
It's simply calling school districts a public entity.
Yes, and by doing that, just changing that language, we're able to get a little, it's not gonna be a lot of money, but it's gonna be included and we can pick something up to help.
It would make the amount that we have to bond for a lot less.
A lot less. And if you, I'd just like to say thank you for all of us being here. First of all, I was able to look at your comprehensive plan in 2019, and one of your objectives was to provide support to Kuna schools and education and to improve accessibility. And so I really think tonight is one of those nights when we can do that, and I'm really proud to be a part of that and to be positive and to piggyback kind of what everybody else has said is, I want this to be a productive meeting when we walk away with where we're headed. You know, what do we need from each other? What can we do to help our community grow? Because as you said, we can't stop the growth, but I think we can be proactive with the growth, and I think we can work together with the growth to see what we can do that's best for this community. And that's what's made this community such a great community for all these years, is that reality that we can do this together. So that being said, there were some things I had some questions on, and maybe Mr. Mayor or City Council can help me. When someone comes to the P&Z and you send out a notice that they're coming to you, is that a notice that I would assume that's sent to the school district? Is that correct when that first P&Z application comes through? So that we're aware of that?
Actually, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I have staff prepared how that process all works, because I know there's been some unhappiness about being able to comment at public hearings because it's a very strict process that we have to follow. Council doesn't even know about these projects until they come to public hearing with the council. So we have no clue ahead of time. Our staff works through the process, but myself and council, we can't be involved in any of that process until that night. And that's where the term ex parte comes from, where you can't communicate with council members before the night of the meeting and that. So if you would like, I can have Doug.
Yeah, no, I guess my question is, when can the public know? When's the first time that they know that some developers come to P&Z? When is that first time? Is that a possibility for the school district also to know along with the public? Is there emails that are sent out?
It's a public notification.
Okay. So then, have we been getting those? Okay, that's what I was wondering. And then the other thing is, and just personally, I was wondering, just because of my zone, I'd like to know, when the public and the school district know, I would like to know, as a board member, hey, what's being looked at in my zone, so that I can know heads up and take a look at that. And that's just me. I don't know how the other council members feel.
So right at the very beginning,
Yeah,
when
when
somebody,
you can, not-
right at the very beginning, when somebody comes in with a project, we send out notifications to all the affected entities. So
Right.
we've got DEQ and Kuna Fire and Kuna School District. You all are at the very first meeting that happens with all the agencies together. Our police department is there, Public Works, and everybody that's invited is invited to that very first meeting.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And so is there any way that I, as a board member, can get that same invite type thing, so I'm aware of that?
Not sure exactly how
Does
that
that
works.
work? I don't know.
It would come to the school district, so your staff would know.
You can forward it to us?
Yeah.
It
Just
probably
so-
would be good for Doug to make that
Okay.
clarification if you don't mind.
I have
image graphic too, if that helps.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for taking the time to educate me.
So, do I just plug this in, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's.
If smoke comes out, pull it out real quick.
I can do it? Okay, I saw it moving. All right, so this is just the flow chart. It basically depicts our process. So before the city will even accept an application from any developer, any type of commercial product or whatever it may be, if there's a land use application that comes to us, we hold a pre-application meeting. And pre-application meetings generally, those happen anywhere from 6 to 8 months before an item would even get to the city council. And with every single pre-application meeting, we invite the Public Works Department, Ada County Highway District, the Kuna School District, the Kuna Parks and Recreation is there, so all those agencies are notified. So they can come and they can provide any comments that they'd like with the director when we sit down and have that meeting. In addition to that, before somebody can submit an application, we have a neighborhood meeting, and that's when the developer is required to submit basically a brief summary of what they're anticipating to do to property owners within 300 feet of that subject property. So,
Excuse me for just a minute. Can
Yep.
you speak from this side? We have a camera there.
Sorry,
So
sorry.
they're seeing your back.
okay, sorry.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
You've been
So
working
the-
on it, huh?
So the neighborhood meeting notices are sent out to property owners within 300 feet of the subject site that's being developed. After all that happens, then the developer is allowed to submit an application. So, and then we have anywhere from when the application gets submitted to 60 days to process that. Then we provide a completeness letter to the applicant. And the same day that we provide a completeness letter to that applicant, we send an agency transmittal with an entire packet of information submitted to us by the developer to every single political subdivision. So school districts, irrigation districts, basically anything within our area of impact, an agency that's affected, they get that entire packet. And when we send out those agency transmittals, that's that's generally probably about at least 3 months before anything even gets to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So all that information is out there. And then after that, we have to notice, based on Idaho standards, public noticing for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we sent the city, post in the Kuna Mobile News, and then we send out notices to property owners within 300 feet to notify them. And then after that, it'll go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they'll make a recommendation to the City Council. And then we go through that public noticing process again for the City Council, and then we ultimately bring it to the City Council for the final decision.
Would you mind if Dave, not to put you on the spot, to show where we
Sure.
get involved?
Absolutely. Thanks, Doug. That's a great graphic. So we get invited to the pre-application meeting. Those tend to be on Thursdays, and I'm another meeting. Robbie goes to those. We don't normally participate in the neighborhood meeting, but when we get the in the last probably 3 months, we weigh in at the agency transmittal. So we submit a letter, and we try to capture what best we can gather from information the city's given us. When a development, say the development behind us, Spring Hill goes in, how many homes in those school zones will happen, and it's kind of the immediate number might be 200, but when you look at the whole area, it might be 2,000. And so we just send something that says, Kuna High School, this is how it'll be affected. Kuna Middle School, this is how it'll be affected. And let's say Silver Trail, this is how it'll be affected, because that's what it would be up here. So we do that, and then we go to public planning and zoning. We go to that meeting, that second and fourth Tuesday, and then we go again to City Council So, and we've taken the stance of just trying, they've asked us for honesty, and we appreciate that, and so we just say it. And the basic statement right now is, when this is all built out, we can't support it without a bond. That's really the long and short of it. So then we've been working on the side with developers to form partnerships, many of which have been really wonderful. The city gratefully passed a law, or within their code a couple years ago, that said their open space requirement can include schools, and that's been helpful because a couple of developers have said, here's some land that covers my open space requirements, and if you get a school, you have a place for a school. You don't get a school. You have a place for a school. You still have to bond for a school. So that's been helpful, and then we've been working with other developers just to say, could you help mitigate things? And then if it's mitigated, we try to tell city council that it's mitigated and we can support it. But regardless, we'll have to bond for the level that a school costs. So. But that's where we kind of plug into those.
I guess my next question is, and I appreciate all that we're doing here. So what can we do together to make this a better process that we're not doing right now? Is it the best process it can be?
So,
You know, I guess that's what I'm looking at. What can we do?
so kind of when I came on, I was under the assumption that, like a lot of people, is that you could just say, we're not going to build any houses, or we can just stop that where it's at. But once a piece of property is annexed and they have development agreements and sewer agreements, it's literally just checking boxes to make sure they follow those agreements. So annexation would be the most important part to have that input. But I also want to, when we talk about stopping growth as well, if you look at like what the median house was in Ada County in January, it was $540. So if you put the brakes on a lot of that, we may end up with people who can't afford to buy houses, or houses that are too expensive for anyone to buy, which would in turn cause higher assessments, then more property taxes, which is going to make it even harder for you guys to pass a bond or levy at that rate also. So I would I think at the annexation is probably the most for your input. I don't know that once it's annexed in, right, it's literally like checking the boxes.
Where at on this graph does annexation happen?
So I can actually, annexation would happen at the city council hearing, but I've actually also broken down the Idaho Code applicable standards for decision making. This is what our city council has to follow when they're making decisions on applications. So I'll just go a little bit more in depth to these. So at annexation, that's when the cities have the general authority to annex the lands. They have to look at, is this orderly development? Can we service it? Is it something we want in our city limits? And that's when the city council can make a decision and say yes or no. They don't need a reasoning behind it. It's fully at their discretion. But then when you get to things like rezones and plats and things like that, those are protected under LUPA, the Local Land Use Planning Act. So with rezones, the availability of the delivery of services by any political subdivision of the state, providing public services, including school districts, within the planning jurisdiction. So that's where we can weigh in and see, can these political subdivisions service this development? But since this is a part of LUPA, if we deny the application, we have to give them reasons. We have to give them the applicable standards that we used when making our decision. We have to give the reasons for approval or denial, and then we have to give the applicant a path of recourse to come back and get the application approved in the future. So it's a little bit more difficult to deny an annexation than to deny it's a little bit more difficult to deny a rezone than an annexation, I'm sorry. And then preliminary plats. So in Idaho Code, the definition of a plat, so the actual act of subdividing the land, it's essentially a drawing. So when we're reviewing plats based on Title 50, we're just checking it for technical compliance. So are the elements in Title 50 on the drawing? So that's things like the legal description and the property survey, the public right-of-way, the street designs, and lot counts and dimensional standards, where we look at those lot counts, the dimensional standards, are they in conformance with the city of Kuna's adopted codes for that zone? And then I just have room for any more questions in regard to that.
And then if I just might add one thing, so kind of how we got where we are today was back in, what was it, 05, 06, when the city decided to have the wastewater, look at a way to build a wastewater treatment plant. When they formed that LID to build that plant, anybody that came on board with that LID had to annex into the city. So then basically what happened was there was a massive annex, and which brings us to the point where we are with all of these developments that we really are checking boxes on or having to say, well, we can't serve that. We've been able to pause some because we really can't serve that until the developer puts in wastewater lines and such. And, we don't make the citizens pay for that, developers have to pay for that, so once they figure that out, once they get those lines run, then they can go ahead and build, because now we're back to, there's no reason they can't build because now we can serve. So with the building of the wastewater treatment plant, that's what opened up a lot of development in the city of Kuna. I don't think anybody ever thought that development would happen at the crazy rate that it's happening. But that's kind of how we got where we are today. So today when people come in and they want to annex, it's more a matter of, well, I'll give you one good example. The stoplight right up the road here, when they put in that stoplight, ACHD doesn't want to buy right of way. If that land develops, then they'll require that they give up right of way for that intersection. So what you ended up with was a street light that you had to pay for on an intersection that's too small because they didn't want to buy any right of way. And so now if you pull up to that stoplight and you got a trailer on and somebody else is at the light in the turn lane, you can't make that corner until somebody backs up. So when those things develop, if we can do these little infill projects in between, then things like that can get taken care of and work out better. And it's not ACHD's fault, it's not your fault, and it's not our fault. It's just the fact that we haven't opened that up to development, and we try not to make the taxpayers pay for those improvements. So that's kind of how we got where we are today. And when we look at annexations now, it's generally for infill projects to make things happen. We've been working really hard with ACHD on completing 10 Mile as a major roadway and a major arterial. And so infilling those little projects along 10 Mile are very important in order to ever make that happen. So until those things happen, we're all going to be stuck with bad traffic for roads that need fixed that aren't fixed yet, and that's kind of where we are.
So I want to make sure I understand. So what you're saying is a lot of the growth and the developments that we're seeing now were annexed in a decade ago.
Yes. Yes,
And
for the
so-
most part.
And so we're past the annexation part. We're now.
Well, I think
the
most
zoning
of those
part?
most of those are getting caught up. I mean, most of those have had something done with them already. So there are still some out there, but I think the ones that we're starting to see now. Last year, I think we only did what, a couple of small annexations last year.
I think we have only approved one or two municipal annexations in the past year.
Right.
That's, and I think this is where it's important to like fine tune the partnership and relationship. You know, we send out these agency notices, make your comment on preliminary plats.
We send that
Because
out for
it's-
all public hearing
Right,
items.
exactly, because it's a public hearing. And it seems that the real first prime example that we had, where the school district, you guys were amazing at being there, talking to it, submitting letters, really detailing how it impacts you, was already at that phase. And that's important, I think, for this as we move forward, is knowing at what part these developments are at and these developments are in. Because saw what happened, knowing where we were with technical compliance on a development, long annexed, phase approval had already started occurring, and we couldn't say no.
I struggle with that, so I
Yeah.
struggle with that, like, if you can't say no, then why are you voting on it?
JD, and
Attorneys.
you honestly, it needs to be known, you really are preaching to the choir with that.
Well, but in all fairness, that's based on a development agreement. So we have checks and balances. We have a development agreement with the developer. They have to come back and we need to check off the boxes. If they told for instance, the school district on that one would have said, we asked for a bus stop. They put the bus stop too far in the subdivision. We're not driving into the subdivision. It needs to be back on the outskirts where we originally taught. Or they didn't put in the water storage, or whatever the conditions of that development agreement are. Council looks at that, and then we decide if staff has done their job and has come to us and said, yes, they've done everything they're supposed to do, or no, there's some things that they still need to do before they can move on. So that's why we vote on that, and that's why it's a public hearing, is so that the school district can come in and say, no, they didn't do what they told us they were gonna do. It's already in process, it's already development, and as long as they do what they were told to do, like the one you're speaking about right now, they've invested millions of dollars moving, putting pipelines out there. When we did that, we asked them to move them over to the school district property, so your 100 acres now is a viable piece, because the reason you had to buy this was because it cost you too much money to use the Thornton 100 acres. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that your pieces of property are viable anytime we can get to them and get by those. Yes? Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure if this is a staff question or a council question, but I did note that one of the things in the ordinances talks about public services, the availability of public services, and I guess maybe just as a definition, is education, public education, is that a defined term? Is public services a defined term, or would that include education?
I would say that adds to our ability to serve. If the school district can't serve it, and the school district says you can't serve it, that's a reason.
It seems like there is some, that is a factor, the availability of public services to accommodate the proposed development. I see in here the public financial capability to provide supporting services. Those are factors that are in the ordinance, and so I guess it kind of seems to me if public services, if education is included in public services, which it seems to me that it should be unless it's defined otherwise, then it seems like there are some things that we can do there as far as and help us with the partnerships with the developers. Help us with saying to the developers, hey, in order to accommodate this, in order to make these public accommodations, we need this from you. And we need to.
Am I correct on that, Doug?
Yeah, you're correct.
So what it sounds like you're saying is when it's annexed, like the ones that are 2 or 3 years old or whatever, you're just going in to check off the boxes to make sure that they've accommodated through their agreement everything that they're doing. It's not about us coming in and saying we can't handle it, because at that point, us saying it doesn't matter, because they've already met their agreement, they've developed an agreement.
Yes, as long as they have done what you've asked them to do from the school district standpoint, yes.
So I'm gonna get back to what you said, is it an annexation where we need to come together and take a look at what Trustee Johnson talked about? Is that the place where we say, hey, this is where we need to go? Not that we're against growth, because I'm not. I know we have to have it. I just want to have it in the right way. I want it to be a good place where the schools are growing, the community's growing, all of that. The other thing I think Chairman Grant brought up is the bonds. They are so hard to pass. So did Trustee Thomas over there. If we could get something from the legislature that says not a supermajority, that would also help us. And if we could get support from the council on that, that would help us also.
you will have our support.
Yay.
I've been beating the drum on impact fees for
Right, and I know that's
2
on-
years before I became a mayor even, so.
Yeah, and I think that another part that we need to do is educate the public, because I don't know how many times we get from the public as you need to stop the growth, stop the growth. And I don't think they understand. It's just like 10 years ago, they kept telling us to get impact fees, and we kept saying, we can't. And it took time to educate them, to let them know. And I think that's a vital part of this piece, is let our community know that we are working together, and we're trying to educate them so that they understand that it's just not that we can say no more growth, but we have to look at it proactively, we have to look at it sensibly.
Right.
And if it's going back to the annexation, that's a start for us. And I think that's an important start.
Sure.
And I think whatever's gone on under the bridge, let's let it go and see what we can do with this and be positive, because it's about our community. And for me, it's about the kids. I want them to be really at the best, like you said, the best community, the best school district. And I want to support that.
Well, and I think we all have the same
I
goal
think
in
so.
common. I mean, Kuna is Kuna, and that's what we're here for.
Love to.
How can we can encourage more even R4s and R3s and an R2 once in a while? How can we encourage that from developers?
Doug, you got?
Yeah, so that's something you guys could do in the comments that you submit. Right now, we're going through a comprehensive plan map amendment, and with that, we assign zoning designations to the entire area of city impact. So we use that as a guide for decision making of what we see specific properties zoning as upon annexation, or if they choose to rezone. So right now, that's what we're using as a guide for when a property comes in. So if you were to look down Meridian Road, all of that property is designated as commercial because that's a prime entryway to the city. When you start going further out, that's where when you see some more of that low density residential designation. So when those properties annex in, you would see those R2s, R3 type developments.
When was the last R2 that was approved? Or R3?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Well, it was Black Cat Road and belonged to Diane Sanders. She had 2 to 10 acres lots, she busted in R2s.
Yeah.
It was small.
That's a tiny
And
lot.
I'm with you, I mean, the only input we had, I know we have used this in our authority, was a lot of these subdividers, but developers will come in pushing R8. We won't buy it. We'll push back, and they'll come back with a different plan. But I agree with you.
And so then
we could put the stop on that. Just that would, we're not stopping growth, we're just stopping that high density for a little bit. That would help us a lot.
Well, this one on the corner right here, when they first came in, they were the first one that's kind of pushed what I like. When you first go in the subdivision, it's a small portion of R8. The next phase is R6, and the big part in the back is R4, in the same subdivision. So I would love to see more of that, but again, the developers come in with what they come in with, and we don't see it until the night of aha. We don't get any pre-planning, we don't see any of it.
So then, and the hard thing with an R2, so if you're gonna build 2 houses on an acre, you have to put in the streets, you have to put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Curb, gutter, and sidewalk to ACHD standards is, I don't even remember now the price per foot, but it's a lot of money. So if you're gonna do 2 houses per acre, put in curb, gutter, sidewalk, and streets, those lots are gonna have to sell for a really, really lot of money. So the ones that you see that, there are some around, but they're all county subdivisions because then they don't have curb, gutter, sidewalks.
Doc, we're on R4 where we live.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We need a couple more of them. A lot of the people in our community that are leaving, once they can afford those homes, they're leaving our community because we don't have any more. I think our subdivision might be the last one that was done like that.
A new thing too, with probably a year ago, we changed the park standard size and the open space size and all that in the city. We have seen a pretty good amount that came in saying, hey, we're gonna build this R6, but with the open space standards and stuff, everyone sees R6 on paper, but when you look at the actual build out, one of of them was clear down at under 4 because of pathways, walkways, 4-acre grass areas out in the middle to play in, yada, yada, yada. So that has kind of helped too by changing that open space requirement.
Which development are you thinking about?
Let's see, which one was that? Anybody?
I would guess probably maybe Lagarno Terra, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and going off of what Greg was saying, when we look at the density of these developments, R8 is a gross density. So even if someone were to want to come in with 8 dwelling units per acre, we measure it off of a net. So all of the land they use for right-of-way, all of the land they use for required landscape buffers, that doesn't factor into the calculation. So they lose a significant amount of acreage that they can't count towards their density. So even if you see something coming in at 8 dwelling units per acre, it's most likely going to come in at 6, or if something comes in at an R4, 4 dwelling units per acre, it'll come in at 2 or 3 because they're losing land to the right of way. That's not getting counted towards their density.
Maybe I'm just gonna, as a school board, what I'd like to see is somehow the property would help us with the bonding, because then we don't maybe have to bond as much. It would be nice even to have some money for school buses, because those are all things we have to put in and find budget for. Anything that you can do
But
that would help us, and maybe other
We
people.
cannot require it though.
No.
It has to be voluntary from the developer.
Oh, I totally get it, or it's called an impact fee if I'm
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
But I'm just telling them, as people here, some of the things that we could use along that way. I don't know, this is all discussion. I don't know, what can we do together to come up with ways to help us, the school district, so we don't have to bond so much or continually go to the people every 2 years for a levy, so that we can continue with teachers and paying for that kind of stuff. That's my line too. What can we do as a community to help us as a school board? What
And
are
our
some
community's
things?
been very good at helping us with those bonds and levies and passing them for us. At some point though, they're gonna say, okay, enough is enough. Even when we don't have to raise the tax rate, they're still gonna see a raise in their taxes because their property values are going up. But they've been very, very good, and we're grateful for the things that they've approved for us already.
But we've been very conservative and
Sure,
careful when
absolutely.
we ask for that bond. I mean, it really is the bare minimum bones. As you can see at this high school, I would have loved to have asked for a full high school, but we asked for half because we knew that our constituents and our patrons, it would have been too hard on them. So I'm just gonna throw that out for discussion.
Can I ask a school board question? And I'm not trying to compare apples and oranges, I know they're different, but West Ada, it seems like they run a bond every 2 years in Untitled Park. It seems like they have a new high school almost every other year.
The difference for West Ada is they have a much higher commercial tax base.
Yeah.
And so they cover more of it than the residential does. And so that's the difference, is that they have that commercial tax base that we don't have out here. We have to rely on our residents and their home values, but they don't have to rely on that so much in West Ada.
And I don't know if you remember in the 80s when Meridian was growing, they were a bedroom community and they didn't have very much of that commercial. They were hurting. They didn't know what was going to happen. And for those that have been here that long, yeah. And that's where we're at, kind of that bedroom community without those commercial buildings to give us the tax base that we can use, the taxes we can use off that. And that's kind of where we hurt. That's why we have to keep going.
That's a really good example. That's part of all the growing pains. I was actually a Kuna firefighter when Meridian was going through all that, and we spent a lot of time fighting fires in Meridian because they didn't have
Right.
the firemen or the coverage they have in one station, just like we do here. And it's a growing pain.
It's a
So,
growing pain, exactly.
The nice thing for Meridian, they had freeway running through them, so once commercial came, it came.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm hoping as it comes down Kuna Road, like you said, all that's zone commercial. It's just that right now, we're getting all the residential, we're getting the kids, and we have no tax base for that as a school district.
fire station, I mean, like we've talked about before, we're not saying to stop the development, but I think if we reached out to the fire district, I think if you had support from us, the school district, and support from the fire district saying, hey, we can't service this area, I think that would give you the reason to vote no on certain development if you had to.
So when you talk about serviceability, are you talking like, you know, classrooms for kids or buses? Is that what, when you talk about not being able to service it, would that?
We're talking 40 kids in a class.
Yeah, I mean, I know,
I feel
my
that.
kid's there, so I see it, and with the school buses, but would that alleviate the pain, or do you say serviceability like we need a new school? I mean, is there steps to make,
I think it depends
like
on the
take bites
development.
out of the smaller, or?
Yeah, I think it depends on the development. I mean, you have a large subdivision coming in, and when that thing is completely built out, you're gonna need a new school, because you're not gonna have enough room to put the kids. So, I think it depends on the size of the development.
So did we have anything specific that we were gonna share?
Yeah,
with impact fees and
Yeah.
legislation?
Yeah, we'd heard through the grapevine, or heard from Dave, that the city council was asking what the school district's plan was, and so this is on our website, so we linked it to the agenda that was sent out. I don't expect you to read the 86 pages that are there, but the issue is that when we actually put together a 10-year plan in 2017, things are different, so we're in the process of updating that plan now. We kind of projected with the enrollment projections at the time that we would probably need a bond every 4 years. We don't know what that looks like right now. We're kind of putting that information together. We're working with the community committee to help us with all of that. But I just wanted to make that available because I know it was asked and it's there, but it's not current because things have changed so quickly. And we also had the COVID challenges too that kind of put us behind. So basically our plan that we had, we've stretched it out farther than we originally had planned for, you know, like rezoning and that sort of thing. But so if you want to read the document, you can, but it really reflects the studies that we've done that are out of date now. So that's why we're in the process of updating everything. And there's a little, on this plan too, there's a data tool that we created that has, like, if this, then this. So if we see so many subdivisions in this area, this probably translates to X number of elementary students, X number of middle school students, you know, so we have it set up as low, medium, and high growth. But the challenge for us, as you guys know, is it's a crystal ball. We don't know. We can make predictions. We can guess. We can and have very high educated guess with all sorts of data, but it doesn't always come to fruition. So, for example, we thought we were in our plan we would have a bond 2 years ago. We didn't need it at that point in time because our growth projections were lower than we had estimated. We thought we were going to have 4%, and we were kind of more 2%. We're trying to get our hands around what that percentage may be moving forward, with more homes actually having been approved than we originally had in our plan. Would you add anything to that, Dave? You're
No, I think
a part
that's
of that.
spot on, yeah.
So just wanted to make sure you were aware that we aren't just like responding, that we actually are trying to get out of it. But that's hard. But the commitment is, they come to us, we will teach them. That's our commitment to our children and our families. We do need help on where to put them.
If I could just add one thing, I recently had a developer say to me, and I enjoy my work with developers, but to follow Wendy's point about planning and ultimately making great spaces for kids, suggested that the way to pass a bond was to wait till the kids were hanging out the windows and eating lunch in the hallways, and then the quote was, and then we'll let the parents do the dirty work. And frankly, I went home kind of angry. I thought, well, we don't have to do that. We could be proactive.
Yeah.
We could work in this great community create plan. Like we have some pretty good facts. We can plan. We can go to our neighbors or city and our community and say, we'd like to do this before kids are eating in the lunch in the hallway and before parents have to do the dirty work. Like, I don't think education is ever dirty work.
No,
So
it's
it
the
should be
greatest
dirty work.
It's the greatest work.
So that would probably just be my, so as we plan, we're planning so that we don't get to that point. And we'd like to not get to that point.
I think too, parents would like to have more input. I think if we discuss how we address the needs from the legislature, maybe the way that we advertise or that we update, it's still in the paper. So for a lot of people, that's not even on their radar. So if we can find a new way for them that we could post it certain places, maybe not just in the paper. That way we can get more input from the community, because we need to hear this at council. I know it's tough, everybody works, but body's in the chair to kind of tell us what they're dealing with as well, so that we can gauge it, everyone's input.
Did we have anything else on the process to update the plan?
That was it, yeah,
Okay.
just reference, you don't need to open it up and
Okay.
look through it unless you really want to, but
Well,
it's
let's-
there, you can have access to it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some collaboration possibilities. I know that we've touched on it a little bit. Does anybody have any ideas for some collaboration possibilities there between the school district and the city?
I have a low-hanging fruit one, if you don't mind, one of our parents, Christy Harvey, who is here, is serving on a community-based project, I guess, and it's our efforts to have high-quality, affordable preschool available to the families in our community. And I think Christy had to leave, so maybe Lou, whoever wants to speak to that, if you would mind just a little bit of information. So I think this is a prime opportunity for us to further collaborate together. It's in the strategic plan, as I've read in the city's strategic plan, and it's also a priority within our plan, and we've heard from a lot of parents. They have it as a priority, the people we serve, the community we serve. Would you mind just taking a few minutes and explain kind of what it is? And
Sure.
Ludi Vermas.
Yes, thank you for letting us have a little bit of a conversation regarding early learning in Kuna. About 7 or 8 years ago, when I was a special ed director in the Kuna School District, one of the data points we were looking at, how our kindergarten kids are coming in based on the fall IRI, the Idaho Reading Inventory. And what we were seeing is our data is dropping. Before the kids were coming 5 out of 10 ready for kindergarten. Now all of a sudden we were seeing 4 out of 10 of our kids are ready for kindergarten. And the basic standard is to name 7 or 8 letters. The print letters, that's all the basic qualification of the IRI mainly. And so we have a big task as a special ed director, getting those kids up to speed. And it's a lot of heavy lift for our teachers throughout the year to get at least, another 4 of those kids. So then we have 8 out of 10 kids on standards in terms of kindergarten skills. So we gathered together. In fact, Mayor Joe was part of our group. The libraries was part of our group. Kuna Grange was part of our group. We just did a collective impact group community, and we just said, this is a problem. As you know, the school district does not have funding for any kind of early learning. Special ed, we used to support, we still support special ed, but any kind of typical learning kids, typical 4-year-old, we don't have any funding for those. But how can we help these kids come in so that we could at least have at least 6 or 7 out of 10 kids coming in, at least able to name 7 or 8 letters, of the alphabet. And so we got together and we were able to put together some projects. We, Mayor donated some bags. We put readiness kindergarten kits for kids that we can give away in Kuna Days and in pantry and any kind of activity the community is having. We're giving those bags away. And then we move forward into applying for grants. And now the last 2 years, we have a preschool that service kids where parents are able to send their kids free of charge as long as they meet the criteria. The kids need to be 4 years old by September 1st, and also which is a little bit above poverty level. You're working families. They can pay the mortgage, their insurance and their car insurance, but they don't have money for high quality preschool. Those nice Montessori program, or even our learning group here in my SAM. So we put that together, and the first year we had probably 50 kids apply for 20 slots. And the data that we had from last year from that first cohort, even because of COVID, the kids were coming in 8 out of 10 ready for kindergarten with those kids that went to that preschool. So this year we have another cohort that we were able to offer full day, because our data was saying parents that are working full time, they drop their kids and then they go to work in Meridian or Boise, and they don't have any place to really put their kids in a high quality preschool. So now this year we are offering a full day program, and there's about 18 kids in our program right now. And they're doing really well. It's high quality because we do 3 times a year assessment. Our curriculum is one of the highest, very peer reviewed curriculum for early learning. And so we were initially situated at kids. It was a donated space. We were able to get grants to pay for teacher salaries, another donated grant to pay for curriculum, and all, collected 10,000 here, 5,000 here. Pretty soon we have a nice, preschool running. But the kids was sold. A new owner cannot afford to give us the donated space. So in the middle of the year, we quickly, pack everything, the kids mainly, and move them at Harvard, which Wendy was very kind enough, they were able to find us a spot there. But next year, as you can tell, the growth in the schools is amazing, and so there's not going to be any room for us, our community preschool. So this is not a school district issue, this is a community issue, because this is a collective impact work that we're doing. These are our community kids, these are CUNA kids, and we're trying to get their readiness skills up there so that they don't have to work harder during the school year. And they'll find school more, enjoyable for them when they find that they are able to do more skills. So we also have a READY program 3 times a year. Our parents come in for an hour and a half, and we give them materials and toys, and we teach them from birth to 5. We teach them how to play with kids, at the same time getting their language skills and number skills and their reading skills up to speed, So we've got a lot of projects going, and we've got a dynamite group of families that just volunteer, and we are on a shoestring budget, but people are passionate. This is something they want to help the kids and the families. And so I know Wendy was saying that, I think as a community, there's still a lot that we can do together. And so I think that's why we're making you aware that we're here, and the ask is, help us, make us grow so that we can impact more families.
Thank you.
I think this is I sound like a broken record, but this is another legislative problem. Last year, our legislature decided not to take a $6 million grant from the federal government that would have helped this program. And so I think it's important to pay attention to what's going on there. And I mentioned this at our board meeting on Tuesday, but our group was at the Capitol building a couple of weeks ago. That can be an intimidating building. And they were there talking to legislators, and I actually talked to one this morning who was very, very grateful that you were there to talk to them. So they're working hard.
I have a few ideas. In the past, I think that our pre-K program has been funded from the city a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, we had, when Lisa she was very active, a part of this group, and because of the strategic plan, and the research around high quality pre-K programs and family engagement, at that level, and how that translates to economic development within a community. And so she was coming at it from that point of view, and we miss her. Her role in that, and I know she had some funding committed to help support the program, and so those are things that, money of course is helpful to that group, and I won't speak for you, I just know because I am a part of your group, but even involvement is really important to us, so that whether it's council or staff, whoever that sits on that group can help direct the group as a whole into other opportunities for support, and maybe joint efforts, you know, that we could do for our community.
Did you say that, that Lisa had some funding set up for that?
She did,
Do you
yeah,
know-
she had identified, do you know what it was, Libby?
Yeah, she said $5,000 is
Yeah.
what she was gonna do.
Within her budget, I think
Within
it
her
was.
budget.
Oh, out of her own budget?
Yeah. And she, I think she told us that, because it was an aligned project goal that would work, so. Those are things that, I mean, not just the money, but, you know, having somebody be a part of it so that, again, we can co-work on some of these efforts. Because I was a part of the strategic planning part with the city, and where that was identified as an area. So I think there's ways to, I don't know what that looks like, but I know you've been involved from time to time there, but I know you're busy and can't always be you. But maybe there's some other people you know that would be ideal folks to join.
I have a couple other ideas too to just throw out there. I know some other cities provide SROs for the schools. That would be a big help for us. And then I think in the past, it's been a few years ago, but I think the city helped out with one of our facility managers. About 70% of our facility manager's job is managing our facilities for people that aren't with the school district. So like
Recreation or?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Parks and Rec stuff is what he's doing, and I think 3 years ago or so that position was actually paid for by the city because he's mainly working as the Parks and Rec. Yeah. So those are a few items to bring up for discussion.
Yeah, I think we've grown, our community's grown a lot now. I mean, we do a lot of recreation sports anyway. Maybe we could look at that, or how that looks. I know Warren and I talked about it.
I've always envisioned, because we talk with moms and dads, right? They're volunteers trying to do this after-school activities with their kids. And they don't know whose field is whose. They don't know if it's city or school always, you know, unless it's on a school ground. But I've always thought it'd be cool to have like a online reservation system that just had all of our facilities, school and city together. And I don't know if there's rules against that, but that'd be a really cool customer service thing, you know, like go here, reserve, moms and dads, they can get things taken care of. We keep talking about it, but I don't know how hard it would be, but sure it'd be a cool saving thing for moms and dads. Or police pals program, all those things that they're a part of volunteering.
Again, that's an education thing. Because so often we at council get, why don't you do something about the roads?
Yeah.
Because we're not ACHD.
Right.
Our schools are overcrowded. We understand.
Yeah.
That's a school board issue. It's our issue too.
Yeah.
But it's all in educating the public on who's actually in charge of what and what powers you have, we have, ACHD has, so on and so forth. It's such a lack of education to most people. I mean, fire department's the same thing. Why aren't they doing this? They're not under the city. They are a separate taxing district, just like the school district, the library district, whatever. Our hands are tied. We can't justify what they're doing or not. And again, it's an education thing, like you said.
Okay.
I think we spend almost about $400,000 a year on the school resource officers and with their benefits and their pay for officers.
I think it's about 300. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're worth it, but those are monies that could go to other things, you know.
Well, and that's, you know, our property tax budget, 80% of that goes to our police department. That leaves 20% for administration, parks, fleet and facilities.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't leave a whole lot left over, so I don't know that we can do a whole lot to, I mean, we're increasing, but we're filling needs within our own police department. You know, we've added detectives so that our patrol officers can do patrol things and not be having to do detective stuff all the time. I think we're looking at traffic patrol, probably one of our next ads. We're trying to move forward with that, but I don't know that we have budget funding to add that much more to pay for SROs for schools. I mean, that's a really big ask. We're already spending a lot of money on our police are one of our most important functions, so we need to continue to expand that and make that good. Some of these other things that are parks reservation kind of thing, we already have some online stuff there, so maybe we can get together and collaborate something on that. I think, actually I was talking to Bobby this morning, and he said that they're more than happy to help with helping with getting fields ready and doing things like that for the sports activities that go on the school grounds. So I think there's some collaboration there. So, and the two things I've just listed, I think I put on Bobby's shoulders. Bobby's like, yeah, whatever.
Mr. Mayor, I am assuming you have a communications person in your office.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if our communications person, not to add more to their plates, but maybe they could get together and talk about how we might be able to educate, put that education out there for people, and maybe get some more rumors quashed and myths quashed. That seems to be a big problem, the education of the community, so they understand who is responsible for what and how that all plays together.
I noticed you have a section on there for, what do you call it, something about the rumors?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
in our, update, yeah.
Yeah, and if you wanna have them contact the clerk's office here in the city, and we can see what we can do with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, because then it shows that we're working together. I think that's one thing the community needs to see, is us working together. And the other thing I'd like to know is that we have each other's backs too. You know, that we're in this together for the common purpose. I'd like to know that the city council has our back and we have their back, and you know what we can do. And I think that's an excellent idea, is to start with some communication, maybe let the people know. And you know, one of the things I said tonight is we need to educate, like we did about impact fees. You know, people know what we can do and what we can't do, and that we need their help at the legislature to come through. So I think that's important too.
They should be ringing those representatives off the hook, you know?
Yeah.
Calls,
Because
emails.
they think it's us, and we know that we can't. So I think we need to educate them. Hey, this is what you need to do. This is the step you need to take.
There's gonna be a lot of people door knocking this summer because they wanna win a seat in the fall, and tell them what you think. Tell them how you feel. What do we need out here that they need to be aware of?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important during that campaign session also to make it very clear that impact fees are a huge deal for the school district, and we can gain support if you are in support of impact fees for school districts and the other code changes and things that need to happen. So I think we need to hit that really early, and it seems like the longer we spend during the year at some of these things, the better off it is when it comes legislative time.
Exactly.
We've already bent the ears, and we're not waiting until they're busy, so.
I think whatever we can do to let you guys know how it impacts us, you know, and as you go to vote through the process that you have to go through, as soon as you know how that's gonna impact us, that will help us too. If you have that piece. And I know there's boxes you have to check off. I understand that. But it would be nice to know that too as we work through this tonight. You know, what do you want from us? Where do you want it?
And then I've been doing the impact fee thing for a long time, and I will tell you, the very first thing they're gonna say is, well, then would school districts be willing to give up some of their bonding authority? That's an unreasonable question. No one else has to. And if you ask them why, they will say, well, because it would reduce the burden on the taxpayer. So, well, that's what impact fees do, is reduce the burden on the taxpayer, because then we don't have to bond for so much. I don't know why they're stuck on that argument, but that's about the end of it. They won't talk to you anymore when you just say, why would they have to, and then they leave. So
It's a voter's decision in the end.
it's an unreasonable argument. No one else has to. The fire districts can still run bonds, cities can still run bonds for parks. I mean, nobody has to give that up. So I don't understand the point of that. And then they also say that it would require a constitutional change. Now, I have never seen anything in the Constitution that makes me think that's true. And just last year, they added EMS to the group of people that can collect impact fees. So it's not that hard. They can do it.
Well, it seems to be hard right now for us.
That's it. They
It's
won't-
been
I don't
several
know why.
years.
I guess I don't get it.
Well, and then the other thing, and I'm gonna ask Trustee Thomas there, where is it in the legislature right now where they're saying that once we run a bond, we have to wait so many months? Is that died?
That bill passed the House, but it is dead in Senate committee.
Okay, thank you.
You gotta wait for 11 months to be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah,
run
and
the
by
bond
that
again.
time in Kuna, if you wait
Your
11
prices
months
are-
and then go back for a bond, it takes time to do that whole process that we have to do with the banks and everything else. We're gonna be eating in the hallways, as Steve
Well,
Reinhardt said, so.
I think, though, that the legislation says that it's a year before it can be put on the ballot again, isn't that right?
That's correct, 11 months.
So, 11
Yeah.
months, but, so you can still get ready for it to
You
be on the
can get
ballot.
ready for it
do all
to
the
be on the
prep
ballot,
work.
you just can't put it on the ballot for 11 months.
You just can't do a May, and which I think they already took that away.
March, and then May, but it also, 11 months, so you wouldn't be able to run it again, so if you ran one in March, you wouldn't want to be able to run another one in March, yeah.
There's some things that would have to
It
happen.
would be more than
It's just
11
one thing,
months.
I think too, that educating people
Mhm.
in the city council what we need, that would definitely hurt us in our growth right now. But I just wondered where it was, so thank you.
I don't believe it will see the light of day for the rest of the session.
But then there's next issues.
There's always next year.
They've already, the sin die has already passed, and if it's not, if House hasn't got it to Senate, or Senate hasn't got it to House, then they're.
No, that would be the transmittal date, and that is never a solid date. There's
Well,
still,
that's-
there's
they're
still
saying
legislation
that.
being introduced. Today, there was more
Right.
legislation introduced,
Oh,
and the
okay.
transmittal date was on Monday, so,
Well, that's what they
That's
said
never hard and
yesterday.
fast.
That's what they said yesterday.
yes.
So,
Well,
They
along
wanna
the-
go home and get to campaigning.
well, they should stop
Along the
introducing
lines,
things
would it
then.
be nice to have one of these every so many months?
Yes, it was.
Quarterly or?
Yeah, so I think that it helps
Unfortunately,
us
it's a
to
good
tear
idea.
down some walls and to take a look at each other and say, hey, where are you at, where are we at? I think it'd be a nice
I think
thing.
indeed, that's what is solvable problem.
I agree.
You wanna do quarterly?
That
Yeah,
would be
so
great.
it's
That's what you
quarterly,
said,
yeah.
right, quarterly?
Yeah.
We've gotta be
That's what we were thinking over here.
Do we need to make a
Do we need to vote
motion?
on that?
Our people will call your people.
Okay, thank you.
They'll tell us when we're having a
The
meeting with
quarterly,
each other.
it all works.
We don't get a
And
say.
can we have this great food again?
Our kids did a great job.
They did an awesome job.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming out, appreciate your thoughts. We have a motion to, or,
Take food.
yes.
Motion to take food.
Yeah.
So ordered.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
And
Thank
for
you.
my
Thank you,
part,
guys.
Council is adjourned. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm semi-retired.
never know what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
And it's not just talking. Everybody ought to be paid. And, you know, they did a great job. These are that they assume they know what we want out here, and I sit and listen to them on the floor, and I'm like, do you want to Yeah, so Kuna's the biggest city in the new District 23, so we do have some say now. Oh, I don't know if somebody's stopped it or not.
Hey, Gary. Yeah, hey, Gary.
I think that's my